Hi, it's Wednesday morning. It's hard to say it correctly. Wednesday, because the D comes before the N. Should I do my rant about that? Why not? Every Wednesday, I need to remind everybody that it's not Wednesday. It's not Wend. It's Wednesday, like Woden. But it's next to impossible to say Wednesday without sounding weird about it. And it's really easy to say Wednesday, which is not correct. So, you have a choice of either, it's like jewelry, okay? Instead of jewelry, jewelry is harder to say than jewelry. So sometimes that happens. Anyway, Wednesday is today, and I'm going to be doing actually a fair amount of painting today because and it's going to be taking a long time, even though the amount of paint I'm going to be putting on things is going to be microscopic almost in some ways. See, in this box, there are itsy bitsy teeny weeny parts. And they need to be painted. And the itsy bitsiest of them all get painted 3 different colors in 3 different places. And so holding on to them, I'm not even sure how I'm going to do that. We'll just dive into it and see what happens, I guess. Getting the paint on them. This section here, these little bits here, have very clear painting directions. And so I'm going to follow those directions for the most part. And see how it goes. I'm going to be working inside this box because if I drop one, and it's very likely that I'll drop one somehow, I don't want to lose it. I already did that with some of the tiny parts that were attached to some of the things I'll show you before, like one of this little bit here, which in reality is, I think, even about that size. I was trying to hold it on a tweezers, because sometimes the tweezers will hold things, but if it slips a little bit, it becomes a launch. You know how you squeeze something and it flies? Well, that's what happened to that, and I was really lucky that I found it. Anyway, it was hard to do, and I managed, but I don't want to lose these little bits. So I'm going to be painting them somehow. See how that goes. The parts that are less itsy bitsy are the ends. Here you can see them. The ends of the fuel tank. I'm going to put a 3rd coat of aluminum paint on there. I don't like the way the streakiness turned out. I think the metallic, the little metal bits were not mixed as well as they should have been in that. And then the seat, which I did more sanding on and reprimed. And I think, if my fingers aren't lying, we'll see. I think the circle, which you can still see where the circle was. I think that's filled in. I hadn't sanded it down enough, so I sanded the whole outside and started over on that. So there'll be 2 coats of duraluminum paint on that, a coat of aluminum on that, and then I'll tackle these one at a time and paint one color, maybe stick them in the sticky tack or something. I don't know, something that'll hold them while the paint dries so I can hold on to the painted part while I paint the rest of it. Just to show you that I do have parts. Here are parts here that are finished. I've actually accomplished some things by finishing these parts. But now I need to finish more parts and then I can do some assembly. Yeah, I'm probably not going to do any assembly today, especially with the little bitty parts. Well, I don't know. We'll see. They have 3 different colored paints. They need to dry before the next color goes on, that kind of thing. We'll see how it goes today. I'm not sure. So that's what I'm working on, and sometime in the future, then all of these parts here will come together, and then the inside of the fuselage, the part that shows when you lift it up, will be finished, and I can start working on the engine, which looks way more complicated than it needs to be in the engine housing. And this, the instructions are in Japanese, and there's a lot of it here. Okay, I have to remember to try to get that translated because it's saying something important about how this is supposed to look. Otherwise, there wouldn't be that much there. I mean, otherwise, all they have is like a color uh, instruction. No, well, yeah, try to look at what's going on here. This I have a pretty good idea what this is saying because the control panel has either a decal or painted. Okay, and if you do the decal, then it's an easy thing to do. If you try to paint it, it's going to be challenging and time consuming. Keep the color. I don't know, looking for places to put things. I'm going to take my glasses off so I can see things close up. I want the parts that are already done kind of out of the way so I can maneuver here. And I'm going to be spending a lot of time with my head magnifier on because I have to be able to see these itsy bitsy parts as I'm painting them. My coffee over here. As an update, I had talked about this on Monday, but I'll repeat it now and again, probably a little later in the stream. I was looking at the wall clock. The wall clock did not fall back. Okay, so it's not really 20 after 11. I didn't spend an hour and 20 minutes doing this. I'm going to be dog sitting starting tomorrow, and dogs can be unpredictable in terms of their demands and in sometimes their behavior. And so this 3 hours or so of streaming could be disrupted. I don't know. I don't know ahead of time how disrupted, or if at all, it will be, because the demands of the dogs, well, I mean, you don't want it inside. There are certain things you want done outside. So those demands might either delay the start of this if they don't do what they need to do early enough, or it might interrupt it. And the possibility is that if they start misbehaving a little bit, you won't hear it because the microphone filters that out. I will hear it. I might have to very quickly say, oops, taking a break, hit the break button, and then who knows how long or what. Okay. So just give you a heads up that Friday and then next week, Monday and Wednesday, might be unpredictable. Maybe a little, yeah, that word, I'll just say unpredictable in terms of how smoothly it will go. One piece of good news is that I stopped spilling and knocking things over yesterday, and I'm hoping I continue that then yet today. That is to say, not spilling or knocking things over. allergies are a little bit less bad. Just a little bit less. Okay, I'm going to start with these. Two things are going to happen with these end caps. One is I'm going to put another coat of aluminum paint on here to try to get rid of some of the streakiness. I'm going to spend more time mixing it and then using a bigger brush and just going over it quickly. And then, I don't know if you can see them or not, but there are these little bolts. Okay. They very faithfully recreated the strapping that holds this together, including the little bolt heads and the little bolt columns. And I'm going to paint those steel so that they show a little bit, since whoever designed this went through the trouble of putting them in, and whoever molded it went through the trouble of keeping them in. And the steel is just a darker shade of the metallic. Tiny little dots of it that will be going on. And then I'm going to put the first coat of duraluminum on this. I'd like to get the seat done today. 2 coats on the outside, 2 coats on the inside. And I'll be able to assemble the fuel tank. I'll actually be able to do some assembly today and get the fuel tank finished. Once this coating of aluminium paint, I call it that. I'm just reading the label. It's aluminium because it's made in Europe. Once I get that done and a little steel bits done, once it's dried, which will be fairly, by the time I get this done, the first coat of that done, they'll be ready to assemble. So I'll do that. Closing it and opening it with a paper towel, because these particular paints have a habit of spattering. I'm going to make sure this is thoroughly mixed. Great, bubbles everywhere. And I'm going to then just spread it on and hopefully not have too many bubbles. Yeah, from the top to the bottom. And I've got bubbles everywhere. Nice. It'll be okay. This one, there's plenty of paint on the brush. This one's really streaky. But they're reduced from what they were. Disappearing. Okay, this will be adequate. It'll look fine when it's done. Now, the tedious process of getting the metallic paint out of the brush. Oh yeah, I'm not even sure that was on camera. I am going to have to come back and I'm going to have to pay more attention to that. what I've done in the past is I put a marker, like a little blop of paint or X or something, on the work surface to say, this is where the camera is aiming, so try to work over it. The paper towel serves that purpose here because that's on camera. All right. I will be using a little teeny brush on the rest of that, but for this, I'm going to try to use that larger brush again. It might be okay. I have to make sure that the metallic shows around the rim, but I'll have to come back and touch that up after I put the second coat of khaki on that anyway. But this larger brush has nice soft bristles and doesn't streak as much. Putting that on I have the sticky tack on the holder here, so I just pushed it together and made a little pyramid of it, so it's kind of holding it up so I can get around the edges. And this is this color, the second darkest of the metallics. No, this third dark aluminium is darker. This the bands on this are dark aluminium. Looks like I've got some dark aluminium touching up to do there. I hadn't noticed that before. Do that. I'll get the little brush out. I'll do some I'll look at the bands with my head magnifier to see how they're looking. Because there was a spot where the aluminium paint got on the band. So I'll probably do the steel first, because if the brush slips or something and it gets onto the dark aluminum, then I'll have to touch that up anyway. So I'll do the steel highlights of the bolts first, and then do any necessary dark aluminum touching up on the bands. And eventually that'll get done. And once that's done, then I'll be able to assemble the fuel tank. See, it did. It spattered. That would have been all over my hands. Not all over. I mean, obviously not all over, but on my hands. And then I wouldn't have noticed it, and I'd have touched something. Yeah, the circle's gone. It worked. There's just a little bit of roughness on the surface, but otherwise it worked. So if you were to watch, was it Monday's stream, you would have seen me go, oh no, the circle's really showing. And I sanded all the aluminum paint off, and not showing. I did a whole lot more. I mean, if I know it's there, if I know where to look, I can see the remnants of it. But let's just say if you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't look for it. You wouldn't see it. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'll put a second coat on it a little later anyway, because sometimes it looks better than it really is. I can, because I won't be getting anywhere, hopefully, close to the end caps of these things. I should be able to do the steel highlighting on these things that are just barely on screen here. The bitty brush here. Head magnifiers. No, I cleaned all of this up and yep, things are happening. I'm a half hour into it and things are already happening. Oh my. The lens fell off. I have a place to put that, but I wanted to set it down closer to me. Wasn't a place. These are filthy for some reason. Hard enough to see anyway, but magnet dust gets in the way, and then it's even harder. Oh. You know, I've used up the Mickey Mouse Club. Pretty much used that up. Before I put that on, I'm going to get the paint stirred up. Stir the paint. I have to find the paint. Will do. I have two of these. This one has a little more pigment in it because it's near the end of the bottle. I don't need to be wearing the head magnifiers while I'm doing this. I should show you this. This is the little palette I'm using to squeeze the paint in. That's the aluminum. That's the duraluminum. This is where the steel is going. And these are made for like one-time use in elementary classrooms. You know, they come by the dozen, and you can see that I get really cheap. You know, I have to be because unless you go to patreon.com/Dice and Dungeons, patreon.com/Dice and Dungeons, become a patron and say, I want my patronage to be used to buy new palettes so that relaxing painting can use clean ones. I get really cheap about things, and so that's spattered too. A drop of this because the parts that I'm painting are almost invisibly tiny. So I was, spending a lot of time talking about the Mickey Mouse Club and what the days of the weeks all different things were and stuff like that. Kind of use, you can see the paint there. Do one side and then flip it over, hold it the other way and do the back. Because both sides will show. Alligator clips are pretty good for holding things, but they're very smooth surface, and occasionally they pop out of my hands. So I tend not to use them to hold little tiny parts that could go flying. This bit of detail painting is probably totally unnecessary. It'll be, I think, invisible to almost everybody, but I know it's there doing it. Yeah. It's holding things down like this. They're made out of a different metal than the thing they're holding. And then just little spots on these bands that need the yet another shade of this metallic dark aluminium. Makes it bigger, but depth perception got screwed up there. That's what sometimes happens with these head magnifiers is it makes it bigger, but can't tell how deep it is. So yeah, I was going over the Mickey Mouse days of the week. There was Fun with Music Day, not in any particular order. Music guest star, talent roundup, anything can happen, and circuit. And what I was telling everybody is I was reminiscing about these different days, is that I'm not sure what the difference between talent roundup and guest star days were. Both of those were days on which, somebody else other than the Musketeers were doing things. They just got to stand around and look appreciative and awestruck as somebody was doing their talent or guest starring stuff. And I think on Fun with Music Day, they probably had some sort of musical guest star as well. Anything Can Happen Day was their, it's like, I don't know, they don't have a guest star or whatever, so just make something up. I think they were like, they showed a lot of cartoons or whatever. And I don't remember Circus Day at all. So I'm not sure what they did on Circus Day. They probably had some sort of guest star come on. And then when they didn't have somebody else other than the Musketeers doing something, like a guest star or a talent, they had these serial story of Spin and Marty or the Hardy Boys. And that took up some time. And the reason I was speculating about that is that, thinking about it, it was like, what did the Musketeers ever do other than introduce themselves at the very beginning of the show? And after Talent Roundup Day, they all came out and sang, "Here's your hat, here's your ears, you're an honorary Musketeer." So unless one of them had like a talent they were showing off, I'm not sure what the Musketeers did. It's almost like I need to find some old episodes and watch them just to see if they did anything. This one I'm mixing up now that you can't hear, but you can see it. You can see the waving that happens from the little vibrator thing here. This is the color of the bands, and as I was looking at them through my head magnifier, I could see that there were spots that needed some touching up. So this is you'll be getting almost the entire full palette of metallic colors here. So, like, one drop of this stuff is way too much. You can see them here again. That's lighter than that, and that's darker than that. Especially on the back here. But the back actually is visible when this is assembled. It's not too bad. I think the other one must have had the. Whoa. Yep. I think I was trying to remember is whether Zorro was one of the serial things that they did on the Mickey Mouse Club 2, or was that a totally separate show? I remember thinking that the theme song was really cool, but then I started remembering it and realized that it really wasn't that good. Out of the Night, well, the rhyme wasn't forced that much, but it didn't say anything. So it was out of the night when the full moon is bright comes the horseman name is Zorro. A bold renegade carves a Z with his blade. That very unique Senior Zorro. I don't know where did that come from? Zorro. The fox so cunning and free, because Zorro is that's fox. So I mean, they gave us a little bit of translation there. We learned a word. The fox so cunning and free. I mean, cunning, okay, but free. Why free? Well, the reason it was so cunning and free was so that it would rhyme with the last line, Zorro, who makes the sign of the Z. Well, we already heard that, in the opening part. Out of the night when the full moon is bright, gives the horseman named Zorro. A bold renegade carves a Z with his blade. We already learned that he carves a Z with his blade. But at the very end, they get to say it again. The fox so cunning and free, Zorro, who makes the sign of the Z. And then a rapier carves a Z into a wooden door. The cool thing about that is that when we were kids growing up, all we wanted to do was run around with a sword going to make the whooshing sound, because the three slashes to make the Z. And in fact, during the show, Zorro did leave a lot of Z's around. We would probably consider that some sort of vandalism, just a misdemeanor. He messed up doors. I remember he messed up doors of bad guys a lot. Sometimes he messed up their clothes. He was really good at that. He just got the tip of his rapier, cut a Z into someone's tunic or something. These are pretty much done. I'm going to let them dry. And then we'll, if this is still any good, there's still a lot of it left. I'm going to mix it up. Second coat on here. Yeah. So unless you really knew where to look for that circle that was one of the molding flaws, it's not there anymore. Even if you look up close, you can barely make out where there was an outline of a circle. It's really almost impossible to see it. So I'm happy about that. Okay. There's a little bit of the metal frame around here that shows, and that, I really kind of like how the overspray of the primer on the first coat of the khaki looks. Almost tempting to leave it that way. There's a little discoloration on it, but tempting to just leave it rather than painting it khaki again. If it were just a little more uniform. at magnifiers and see how it looks that way. This might be a happy accident, or it might just be, yeah. So what happened here was I painted the khaki on the inside of the seat. And then I looked at the back and said, no, that circle really shows badly. I need to sand it down more. And I did, and and it's much less visible now. But I sanded it off and then reprimed this piece. And when I was priming the back and the sides, of course, some of the primer spray got onto the khaki that had been painted. And I kind of like the way it looks. But it's just not uniform. There's like spots and things. So I think what I'll do is I'll paint the khaki on again, the khaki paint, and then uh, maybe put a gray wash on it or something. I'm not sure. It was really close to being a happy accident, but then just not. There's too much on this side, not enough on that side. Do that. Let's paint khaki. Say I promised I would stop doing that. I promised I would stop talking in the plural like let's, like you're here doing it with me. And then I did it again. Well, I was saying, as I got into the Zorro theme song, that as kids, we really loved the Zorro theme song. We sang it all the time. Other than who wouldn't want to be Zorro? You dress up and wear a black mask and a cape, and you got to go whoosh, whoosh, with your sword. And you could be a bold renegade, a renegade against, I guess, against the authorities. Right? He was an aristocrat. They always are. Like Batman and Iron Man and all those other whatevers. They're all super rich oligarchs. Except Superman. Superman was a mild mannered reporter. What lesson was that telling us? Well, I'm not going to get off into that about what was it telling us about being superheroes, and wealth. Nope, not going to get into that. But what I will say is that I guess he was a renegade in Mexico. That is to say, Zorro, in that he was opposed to the rich landowners and stuff. I'm wondering. um, real Mexican folklore. I mean, it's like Zorro Zapata. Just, I never thought of that before. I mean, when you're a kid growing up in the Midwest, wondering who's going to show up on guest star day. Think about the origins of the Zorro thing you're watching, right? But now I am. And I don't know if I'm going to bother looking it up or not. I mean, it could be a thing I could do. It's whether Zorro was derivative of some real folk hero kind of thing. Something to think about. Just try and then decide whether I need a second coat or not. I definitely need to go around the edges, touch up the shell. To see one thing was and where the other left off. Needed to get paint on it. Because the cushion kind of goes in there. And then the metal sort of wraps around it. Looks like it's going to be okay with one coat. Just have to be really careful with the metallic paint as I do the edges. This up so I don't knock it over. Ta-da! To be careful. I've washed the brush. This happened before, and I was wondering what in the heck was going on. The metallic paint just leaves these little bits of metal everywhere, and then they embed themselves in the brush, and the brushes don't come clean. So this brush is not coming clean at all. You have to do the alcohol thing. What I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to empty. I'm going to take a little bit of a step away, and I will need to empty those wash waters because the little metallic bits from the metallic paint are floating around in it. When I try to clean the brush from a different color, I get metallic specks, like little bits of glitter. And that would be fine if I wanted something, metal flaky, but it's not. It's not what I want. So there, that has to be done. Take these off. So I'm going to be away for just a few minutes. You can see how nice and sparkly the wash water is from metallic paint. I'm going to clean those out, and then when I get back, I guess I'll start painting these. Why not? And then at some point, while I'm waiting for paint to dry, I would assemble the fuel tank. But first, I need to do the cleanup here. I'm not even going to put the "Be Right Back" on the screen because this is going to be like 2 minutes, 3 maybe, if I don't spill anything. If I do, it'll take longer. I'll come back and say, "Oh no, I spilled something. I have to go clean it up." Okay, I didn't spill anything yet. Just setting it down. So I've got 2 of these, and one of them will be used for metallic, and one of them will be used for non-metallic. If I remember which is which and why I'm doing that. Okay, so there's 3 colors that go on these itsy bitsy bits. There is number 40, which is the German gray, which is this dark gray color. There is 33, which is black, which means like it's a rubber handle. Okay. 33 is, I got a nice flat black paint out earlier here. Oh, okay. 4 colors. Number 8 is a silvery color. It just says silver, but I've been using 4 different shades of metallics. So the itziest, bitsiest bits are painted German gray on the bottom where they attach. There's a metallic colored sort of shaft with a little bit of a black handle on it. This one I missed altogether. Is the handle for this, this is in fact the control column. It's supposed to be painted red, the same color as the shell of the fuselage of the plane. So I'm going to have to get red paint out at some point. Well, this German gray is the most common color. A lot of parts are painted that. So I guess I'm going to use that first. I'm going to do all of this here. There we go. Over this box. I need to use the tweezers, but I can't even pick up the pieces otherwise. So this one is supposed to be painted. The whole thing is supposed to be painted gray. I'll hold it and paint it at the same time. Let me take a chance. You can all play the ABBA song. Take a chance on and clip this. If it pops off the clip, it is lost. Okay, this is if it really, and after it's painted gray, it's going to be even harder to see. But give it a go. Oh, that's yeah. You just have magnets in the base. That means they go flying. Even though the little spinner thing does a good job of shaking it up, I just feel an obligation to shake the paint. Should put my head magnifier on for these. There's nothing else I can even see what I'm doing. Somehow it just seems like some of these that there should be some other color on here. Just a highlight color somehow. Sure, totally understand what this. Oh yeah, that's right. These are the rudder pedals. I remember that now. I'm cleaning these parts up, and as such, I'm keeping this way down in the box. If this pops off, um, there will be a major problem. And I don't want a major problem. I don't even want a minor problem. I would just soon have no problems. So the rudder pedals could be 100% painted metal, which is what this dark gray is, or the pedal parts, which are here and here on the ends, would in fact be rubber and would then be painted black. And I think I'm going to do that. Black, and I have the black paint out near the end. So this, with an alligator clip on it, I would ordinarily, like this, stick it in the holder thing here, like these. But if it pops out, it'll fly up. So I want to keep this very much in the box. So I'm going to, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to set the alligator clip down and prop it up a little bit. These in the box. Just so that's not touching the surface below it. There. Next bit. And let me clean the brush off. Otherwise, it's going to get all gummy and hard. The paint will be hard on the brush. This next bit. It's like a brake handle almost. And the handle of it is painted black and the rest of it is painted gray. So I'm going to, even though it's very delicate, stick it in a sticky tack. If we can, once this is dry, can take it out and then paint the handle part, which is in the sticky tack, black. I didn't prime these little pieces because the process of priming them created quite an opportunity for them to get lost. Oh, damn it. Quite a strong magnet. I need to put this way on the side, way on way here. I've had some really bad experiences with that magnet, causing really bad, it just making things fly and breaking them. It's not painted because it's the bottom. Okay. I'm going to use the same technique with these other bitty bits. Delicate. You don't need to get it in there very far. I just need it to hold it up while the paint is drying. this is painted, I can hold it on the painted part. Tiniest of tiny parts here and here. Yeah, well, it's a bitsy teeny weeny. It is. Making one color and making sure that it's covered. And then I'll be going down, with another color and covering up some of the paint. That's just how I'm going to be doing it. Is there'll be some layering of paint on it to some extent. To be some way of just having trouble getting these things focused. At least it's on camera. There's that. Hi, Enforcer. Thanks for joining in. I appreciate you stopping by as I am painting little bitty bits, little bitty teeny little bitty bits for the inside of the cockpit. Hoping that when they're put in place, they don't lose them. To get it away from metal. Clean up this brush. Things are going okay today. I've only dropped one thing. I've only almost knocked something over once. I haven't spilled anything. I haven't lost any of these little parts. It's kind of a surprise. Over 100 main story quests. That is truly amazing. Yep. You're seeing painting. I'm going to stretch my back a little bit here. Find my regular glasses. There they are. So in the MMO you're playing, you get into a new world. Yes, you're seeing base painting. Hi, thanks for the first time chat. I'm going to recap what I have been working on here. The camera around a little bit. I'm just reaching over to uncover some stuff. So this is a Savoia S.21 48th kit. The whole box top is in Italian. Okay. And this is, thanks for the follow, Porco Rosso's plate from the Porco Rosso Ghibli movie. Okay. And it, the fuselage lifts off. And there's all this detail on the inside. And that's what I'm working on here, is getting the detail done. And Forcer's been with us for quite a while, Yebo, and is describing in chat an MMO that they're playing. So the inside of the cockpit has, well, the inside of the plane has a lot of detail, and that's it here. Those are the parts, many of the parts that will be assembled in here. And some of the tiny bits are already attached to the framework, but these tiny bits here, these itsy bitsy little bits, are controls that go into the cockpit. This thing here, one frame around it and goes on top of it. So there's trim tabs and the control yoke and all sorts of things like that that go there. And they're painted multiple colors, and that's why I had my head magnifier on. They're very small. So over the last 7,000 hours, I painted some of these things and got them washed and detailed, and they're kind of ready to go. So what will be happening the rest of this stream is that this is the center of the fuel tank. These are the end caps here, and I'll be cementing those on a little later. And then these are two versions of the control panel here. One just has a decal on it, and the other one, as you can see, has the instrument panels embossed into the plastic. So I'm going to do both of these, and this is the one I hope I'm going to be able to use. I hope I'm going to be able to get the instrument panels done right. Dungeons and Dragons, okay. But it sounds like that game is doing really well. It's really going to keep you very well occupied. Anyway, these are things I just need to work on a little bit later. I'm probably going to do the base coat on. I can do the base coat on like one of these. It's attached to the front of this part here, and these are different kinds of wood, and so I washed the part where the control panel goes on as a darker color because it's a different kind of wood than the rest of it. That's the story behind it. So I'm going to paint these to look like that. To show you one of these, it's got little alignment pins on it. If I can hold it. No, I can't hold it. It's just that. Look at that. It gets cemented on here like good finger holding things. It goes on like that. So it needs to be painted front and back because parts of the back show as well as the front. Anyway, that's some other stuff I need to do in the future. But those are all the parts that need to come together. I'm waiting for the gray paint to dry. And while I'm waiting for that to dry before I start putting on the next colors, I am going to assemble the fuel tank. Then I can get this stuff out of here and out of the way. This is the body of the fuel tank. This goes on pretty easily. It's hard to mess it up because the two sides have different, like little different tabs on them. So I can tell which side goes where. Oh yeah, the inside of this, I put fun tack in here so I could hold them on the these pieces of wood. I probably should take the fun tack out of there if I can get it out. It's probably because they actually are friendly. You know, people in chat are what they are, and if they're friendly, then they're friendly. If they're not, well, then they're not. Well, you know, that fun tack just wants to stay in there. So what I need to do is just make sure that it's not on the surfaces that need to be cemented. It's not going to be there. Well, it worked really well for its purpose, and now it's a nuisance. See what happens if I attempt to assemble it with the fun tack in place. Maybe I can get parts aligned. I tested all of these things before. I don't know why it's not going together now. This is annoying. Okay. Well, there's always something in this show. Last thing I expected today, I didn't expect it at all, was that the fun tack would be keeping the parts from fitting together. So how far along are you in the game? Is not the final one in the story arch, but is it close? Is it close to being the final, or is it only like part way through? At some point, I'm just going to go back to talking about the Zorro theme song. You know, just as a reprieve from this. I thought this stuff would clean off more easily than it is. Okay, I'm not even going to have to cement that because the fun tack is definitely holding it in place. But you can see how that goes on. The other one goes on this side. And there is fun tack in the way here, so I'm probably going to have the same issue. Yeah. You get to watch me rub this blue Funtac stuff out of the way. What happens here? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not cemented in place. It is Funtacked in place. Yay. But there is an assembled fuel tank. Look at that. There's a piece, and it goes in here somewhere. I wonder where. I mean, I think it goes there. It fits there. That's how that will fit. Look at that. Then there's a bulkhead here, and a bulkhead here, and then the machine guns mounted in front. The machine guns are mounted directly in front of the fuel tank. But there is what looks to be a fire break, a firewall between them. Yeah, this piece here, this bit here, which goes, there's a correct way and an incorrect way. This bit here go in front of it, separating it from the machine guns so that the machine guns don't explode the fuel tank. There, like that. So you're beginning to see how this is coming together. What there isn't, oh my, what there isn't there isn't a firewall between the fuel tank and the cockpit. There is this thing, which has some braces in it, but it's not it's just that. Okay, well, I mean, if you want to fly a plane like that, I guess you do. So anyway, that's how those pieces will go together. I'm not going to leave that on. I'll set that there with the finished stuff. But there, I did a thing. I finished the fuel tank, and sometime in the future I'll be assembling all those parts. Okay. So you are more than halfway through the first of 4 or 5 story arcs. Okay, so at least some of the others aren't quite as long and arduous as this one, but it sounds like a really fun game. So the game developers haven't even finished the last one yet. That's interesting. You'll be playing that fresh and new, and moving some garbage out of the way. Okay, I'm going to do this. I want to take these out for the moment. I'll explain what I'm doing in a moment. This piece here goes on very close to the very end. This is a gun sight that installs on the very top of the fuselage and attaches to the canopy. And I'm going to set that in here so it doesn't get lost. Hopefully I will remember that it is there and cover it with this paper towel. Okay. And then I'll put these pieces back in here where they won't get too terribly much lost. And maybe I'll get around to base coating those a little bit later. Maybe. Okay. The Okay. So the Norse one is just a side story, but it helps you level up. You have a lot of levels to go. It sounds like this game's going to keep you really busy for a long time. The next color is actually going to be the same color as the seat back. And some of these have shiny metal shafts on them. There's a gray painted metal where it's attached to the attachment point, and then there's a shiny metal shaft, and then a black rubber handle on the end. That's right. You did mention earlier that that game is a very old one, that it had been around a long time. I need to touch up the edges of this seat, but I'm going to do these things first and then set this aside. I have learned my lesson. There are magnets in the bases of these, and if two of them come together, they push each other apart. And so if I'm not holding the other one, it will go flying. I had a very bad experience with that once, with a minifig that was holding a sword and another minifig that was holding a hammer, and I painted the hammer, set it down next to the sword. The sword one went flying, the other holder went flying, and the sword broke off and got lost. And so I fabricated a new sword. I was able to do that, but the lesson was, don't get these close to each other. They react violently. Okay. So three of these have this color put on them. Oh yeah, I should mentioning now that you're mentioning dogs needing attention. I will repeat what I started with at the beginning. I'm dog sitting starting tomorrow until next Thursday. And so, just as Enforcer had mentioned, they sometimes need your attention because they're getting into something. I mean, just like that. They need attention, they're getting into something, or they need attention because they need to go out. And they will be somewhat unpredictable. And I'm going to do my best to keep the stream on schedule. But if I have a situation, for example, where they don't do their duty first thing in the morning, and this would then be delayed while I wait for them to do what they need to do. Thanks for dropping in, Enforcer, and I hope you have continued to have fun with your game. And so there's a chance I could be late starting. There's a chance that after I do get started, I will have to interrupt and take care of the dogs getting into something. I might have to end early. It will become a little bit unpredictable. Okay, I'm now carefully holding this on the part that I painted before. And then I'm painting. This is either on screen or not. And if it's not, I apologize. Oh, don't fall off. I'm just trying to get this in focus. Brush slipped. I'm going to have to do dark gray touch up on this before I finish. I was complaining about the Zorro theme, which when I was growing up I thought was totally cool, and we used to sing it all the time as kids. But then, recalling it, the recollection of it now is that it was kind of a lame song. There's a reference to the Z a lot. So it's like the bold renegade marks a Z with his blade. That's why he was a renegade, because it had to rhyme with blade. Okay. He marks a Z with his blade. It was like, no kidding. The Z that stands for Zorro. Duh. Seriously, what else could it possibly be? I have no way to set this down except grasping it. It's just I don't know what to do. Guess I need to just set it there. What I need to do here is, instead of holding it, I need to bury that end in the sticky tack like I did with the other one, with the other thing. Like this. Need to do it that way. The painting here is going pretty poorly, actually. I mean, I'm getting the metallic color on it, but it's getting onto the dark gray surfaces, and I'm going to have to go back over it. I don't know how it did the same thing on the other one. It got right there. Even though the brush wasn't there, the paint got there. This should have been easy to do, and then it turned out not to be. Yep. Sometimes things go like that. Oh, this one turned out. Okay, there's this little appendage here. Can't tell if it's supposed to be the silver color or not. It is now. Yeah, I knew these were going to be a pain. I was right about that. touch the painted parts. And now my paint is pigment and the solvent separating. Okay, this one. This one is a little more intricate. There's like a leather wrapped handle there. There's like a gun trigger there. The top of this bit is all supposed to be painted red, but it looks like it needs to be painted multiple colors because there are different components to it. There's a leather wrapped handle here. There's a metal piece around here. And then there's a little button there. I think what I'll do is I'll paint the whole thing red, kind of like the directions suggest, and then make a decision about whether to add any other colors to it or not. Okay, well, as long as nothing goes flying out of here, I should be okay. Using this color now to touch up. I'm going to be touching up the frame of the seat here. With the metal frame. Nope, not working at all. Metallic color is climbing right up to the other, into the khaki. So I'm going to have to do a round of touching up in the other direction. Significant touching up. I thought this would be straightforward because it's a lower. Could paint up to the surface, but it's definitely not working. Definitely zero. It's like anti-working. Okay, I thought this would be the simple part, and it's turning out to be just the opposite. It's turning out to be difficult. I'm going to be spending a lot of time with a teeny brush and khaki paint, getting the edges right. I just timed it wrong. Okay, I thought that, not timed it wrong, but got the order of things wrong. I thought that painting the khaki and then touching up with the metal would be the much easier of the things. And so I let the khaki paint get onto the metal frame, thinking that this touch up right up to the edge would be straightforward, but it's turning out to definitely not be, and I'm getting metallic paint now all over the khaki. So there'll just be a lot of touching up in the other direction and probably back again this way. So this thing that would have been done by now and was simple and straightforward turned out to be, as is sometimes the case in this stream. I don't think that's going to work. Oh, it worked perfectly. Or this should be simple. And oops, that's just now a mess. This is one of those where this should be simple. Oops, nope, now it's a mess. Yep. Mess. But eventually you get done moving the paint back and forth until it's correct. I hope that the khaki paint flows nicely. That's often the deciding factor whether something is going to be a serious problem or not, is whether the paint flows well. Well, the next bits of paint are flat black. I'm going to go ahead and do the flat black parts. And then I will need to do some touching up, especially on these tiniest of bits with the dark gray. There are like little handles on these things, the rudder pedals, and then the handle on this one to be painted flat black. I get those done now. Going on to noon. Okay, I've got like a whole hour left. I'm not sure. I might end up finishing early today. I really don't know. So I've got, a fairly large amount of work to do on the seat here, fixing that up and then fixing it back again. Yeah, I mean, there's just stuff. There's just stuff to get done. More fun talking about the Zorro theme song. Used to think, why would we think that the rhyming of it was kind of cool? The theme song was cool. Hotter than night when the full moon is bright. Like Zorro seemed kind of werewolfy, right? Didn't think of that. What if it isn't a full moon? Did Zorro come out there? Seriously, I mean, what if we're supposed to listen to the theme song? Other than night when the full moon is bright, definitely makes it sound like Zorro only comes out when the full moon is out, which makes Zorro kind of werewolfy. I never thought of that growing up. It was just, it's how the song rhymed. But the rhyme tells a story that's kind of disturbing. The horseman known as Zorro. Okay, that's fair. He was a horseman, and in fact was known as Zorro. when in this Zorro disguise. He was another one of these, like the Lone Ranger, right? Wore a mask. Are you a good guy? Why are you wearing a mask? That kind of thing, right? I think the Lone Ranger explained that a couple of times. We did. But Zorro had to wear a mask because, his day job was being an aristocrat. And he couldn't right wrongs and redistribute wealth and things like that in his aristocratic role. Well, that didn't stay put. Anyway, he came out at night when the full moon was bright. The horseman name is Zorro. He was a bold renegade because that rhymed with blade. Carved a Z with his blade. The Z that stands for Zorro, which was incredibly redundant because the previous line was the horseman known as Zorro. So when he carves a Z with his blade, what would it stand for other than, Zorro? When we were kids, that was a fun. Carved a Z with his blade, the Z that stands for Zorro. I'll do the swish, swish, swish thing. Carving Z's with our imaginary blades. Because Zorro was pretty cool. Then they would say, Zorro the fox, so cunning and free. Because Zorro does mean fox. Why free? I don't know. It rhymes with Z. Unique senior Zorro. Yeah, the nostalgia thing just isn't working with Zorro here. Kind of sad because, Zorro was a really cool thing back when we were kids, but, I guess it shouldn't be because his theme song just isn't very good. And, in retrospect, we shouldn't really reflect. We shouldn't hold that against Zorro. Zorro probably didn't write the theme song. Zorro doesn't even sing the theme song. Zorro might not even know that he has a theme song. We do know that he goes swish, swish, swish and puts Z's on lots of things, usually wooden things, fences, doors, frequently doors, and sometimes people's clothing. He was so good with a sword, he could do a Z into somebody's shirt without touching their skin. That was pretty skillful. Had to admire that. And they knew that Z stood for Zorro. There is a hair or something there that only shows up. Great. Maybe I should wait until the paint dries before trying to pull that invisible hair away. I want this bit of it, just the interior grip here, to be black. And I was going to wait until the red was painted on it, but now I'm not going to because I've got the black paint out. And then maybe you have to come back and forth like often to do touching up. Or maybe not. I think that will look better if it looks as though it has good grip on it, as opposed to just painted red metal. Bang the brush. Got a black spot on there. Fortunately, I haven't painted it yet. Okay, this came out okay. This needs gray touch up. These need gray touch up. A little bit of metallic. I got some of the black just on this one, just a little bit too far. And as I step back from it and go, will anybody notice that? The answer is probably not, because I can barely even see it. I mean, not just the flaw in the paint. I mean, see the part. Yeah, that's going to be left alone. Set this aside. Have I complained about Zorro enough? What should I move on to? Well, there was the question of whether Zorro one of the serials that showed up on the Mickey Mouse Club and then got spun off, or whether Zorro had its own show. And I can't remember. I can't remember one way or the other. But speaking of superheroes, which is kind of what you talk about with Zorro, I think Zorro had a cape. So yeah, that kind of qualifies as superhero territory, having a cape, right? Why? I've talked about this before too. It's just I'll repeat it. Why have a cape? Okay, you're moving around, you're swinging your sword, you're doing fancy footwork, all sorts of stuff, right? The cape's going to get in the way. A cape could be a real impediment. It could tangle you up, I think. And right. It doesn't hold anything. It's like an affectation that I think could very well get in the way of your heroing stuff. Being a hero. Just my thought. Okay, red, flat red. I think I've got a glossy red somewhere. It is X7, not XF7. There's little bits on this one. That one that are painted red. Basically the curved handle on it is painted red. khaki touch up first, maybe. I should let that paint dry a little bit before I start messing with it, especially the black. If that runs into another color, it'll be messy. So I talk a lot on this stream about how I can take up a huge amount of time and not really seem to get anything done. Today, I'm actually getting a lot of painting done, but the parts are so small and it looks like I'm not getting anything done. Can you say? Oh, I'm going to take this out. This is the one that's going to have a decal on it. Clean that up. Okay, that needs some cleaning up. And I'm going to base coat. I'm going to base coat the backs of these. Oh, I see. Okay. It's a little prong that's sticking out there. I don't know if you can see it, but on the bottom of this, there's a tiny little bit of prong that sticks out, but that corresponds to this, whatever that is on this one. These, I can tell with the backs because they have little prongs on them, but parts of the back show once it's mounted. So I'm going to base coat those and then wash them in the same color as the if I pick it up, I'm going to knock something over. Just don't. Sometimes it's just don't do that. And that was one of those. That was a don't do that thing. Well, anyway, I was able to go from the Mickey Mouse Club wondering what the Mickey Mouseketeers ever did because they always had guest stars and talented to be rounded up and music fun. And on circus days, they probably had circus performers. And I've said before, I seem to have like blocked out circus day. Just not remember circus day on the Mickey Mouse Club at all. So it must have not been very good. Okay, I want to go silent here because I'm doing tiny little dots of paint. And I have warned everybody before that I don't seem to be able to do this and talk at the same time. Don't want to have to go back and forth many, many times. To repair the edges of the upholstered part of the seat. compared to the metal frame of it. With somebody else's. Tip of the brush gets gummed up here. Well, I can just tell you that repairing the khaki color on the upholstered part of this seat is sparing you from any more conversation about Zorro. Although it did raise the issue of why, re-raised the issue, resurrected the issue of why do heroic folks, and sometimes, their nemesis too, have capes. Just, it makes no sense. I mean, even as a fashion accessory, I guess it looks kind of cool or something and sets you apart because most people don't wear capes, right? It's like, oh, you have a cape, you must either be a superhero or a supervillain. Why else would you be wearing a cape, right? It's that kind of thing. I mean, why else indeed? Indeed. Speaking of superheroes, you know, a couple of streams ago, I was questioning whether Tom Terrific was, in fact, the greatest hero ever. And got into a monologue about what would be a hero or not. And I think I decided that, for example, unless kryptonite was involved, like Superman wasn't really a hero because Superman wasn't doing anything that put his life at risk. It's kind of a prerequisite almost of doing something heroic is being at risk, right? So again, unless there was kryptonite involved, there wasn't any. Superman was never really at risk of anything. And concluded that Tom Terrific might not have actually been heroic either, because of the shape shifting kind of skill that he had. But cut him some slack because it made for a cool theme song and taught us all about narcissism. Greatest hero ever. Terrific is the name for me because I'm so clever. That kind of thing. But, Tom Terrific was kind of fun. So didn't hold it against him too much. But I was thinking about that. I suddenly remembered that, as I was talking about cartoon heroes and superheroes or not heroes or whatever, had totally forgotten about one of the very first ones, Mighty Mouse. Here I come to save the day means that Mighty Mouse is on the way. As kids, that's another thing. You yell out, "Here I come to save the day." Why not? Okay, that's actually not too bad. As I'm looking at it, though, it's kind of lifeless, and I might decide to just put a very light gray wash on it, just to highlight, just to make it look so it's not quite so dull. But it would only be a light gray wash. I don't want to darken it. I don't want it darker than it is. But I want the seams in the back of the chair to show up better than they do now. The black paint on this has dried. So I'm going to take it off. Examine the dark gray and find that there is a spot that needs a touch-up. I was going to do dark gray touch-up now, so I'm just going to get that done. I was hoping this piece I could just put in here in the done box, but no, there is a spot where it's just not adequately covered. I set this in here like this. Yeah, no, I don't know where the wet paint is now. It popped out. Look at this piece. Two has a little spot on it that didn't get adequately covered. These That's why I'm working over the box. Is the falling down part. This is next to impossible to get. So hard to hold it. You sometimes can only see it from one direction. Okay. Oh yeah, that's. And then there's this other one. I had to stop talking about Mighty Mouse because painting this stuff, and it just required whatever I have left in terms of attention. So those are little pieces that are pretty much done. Really, they're just laying there. I suppose I could put them in the box. Just needs some red on it. Some parts need to be painted red. And then I need to wash the seat. This brush is a really nice fine brush, but eventually the bristles wear out. And then close to that, I need a new brush. Okay, those are ready to be assembled, which I'm not going to do today because, as usually is the case near the end of a stream, I'd start dropping things and becomes a problem. Okay, this one's pretty good shape. I'm going to paint the red part. And I'm going to use the sticky tack method again because if I just hold it here, then I can't set it down. Need a spot. Okay. Didn't see that before until I set it this way, but it's a pretty obvious spot that needs to be turned gray. Right there. That shiny bit there. That was it. Part of this model making is that kind of thing. Open up a jar of paint, put a dot of paint on a piece, spend just as much time cleaning the brush as everything else, and then so this last little bit that's painted red is going to take a while because it borders on a couple of colors. It just has to be done really slowly and carefully, and that's the kind of thing that takes me a long time. But Mighty Mouse, I mean, just totally, totally after talking about all sorts of 1950s and 60s cartoons. I mean, even talked about Deputy Dog, right? And Underdog and Super Chicken, as well as classics like Yogi Bear. But just forgot about one of the very first ones, and that was Mighty Mouse. And then, having to admit, not really remembering much. I'm sure I watched Mighty Mouse all the time, but I don't remember any of his adventures. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that. I don't even know about the rest of the theme song. I'm sure "Here I Come to Save the Day," and then the chorus. That means that Mighty Mouse is on the way. But there must have been more to it than that, and not remembering it. It's a great disservice to a mouse. Mighty Mouse. Apologize to Mighty Mouse and all the Mighty Mouse fans out there who are wondering, when are you ever going to get around to talking about Mighty Mouse? Waiting and waiting and waiting in vain until now. Did Mighty Mouse have, even remember, if like Superman, Mighty Mouse had, a secret mild-mannered identity or something? I'd end up having to do like a Wikipedia search kind of thing to find out, to help me remember what I can't remember about Mighty Mouse. Paint is, it's not misbehaving, but it's not coming off the brush unless I put too much on. I'm, thinking, before Mighty Mouse sings out, "Here I Come to Save the Day," there really needed to have been something else before that. That's missing. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe that's just how it opened. I don't remember. I mean, it might have been that was the theme song. "Here I Come to Save the Day." Just gets called out, and that was it. Yeah, I know. It's now become a Mighty Mouse mystery. Questions about Mighty Mouse. When they write, they have to be not too coming at this from a bad angle here. Getting the inside of the handle. different, surfaces being viewed from all sorts of different sides. And it's the kind of thing where it's very possible, very easy to just like totally miss a spot. I mean, and not just inadequately paint it, but just not do it. Take this thing. Especially viewing it from the top, because that's how it's going to be viewed. Sometimes red paint needs multiple coats because it gets kind of translucent. It doesn't cover that one. Okay, so this bit right there is probably the gun, the firing trigger. And I'd like that to be a different color. But if anything, it would be red. And it's already red. So maybe a different red. I'm going to leave that for now and then take a look at it later. Well, I've got lots of paint bottles out here. There's that. Put that way aside. Because I'm going to be bringing out the chair again. I've got half an hour left. I might end up a little early, or just what I'll do is do a commercial for Dice and Dungeons. I think I'll do that now. So, yeah. I had to go quiet there for a while I was painting little detail stuff. Those tiny little bits, the little pieces came out okay. You can see those there. The base coat and the silver part and the handle. You can see the black handle and the black pedals. Those came out all right. And the one on here, I think looks really good. Yeah, really, really pretty decent. So I'm happy with how the teeny tiny itsy bitsy teeny weeny itsy bitsy teeny weeny whatever I put up in the thing there has gone okay. Nothing's gotten lost, and they're ready to install. And so I'll be installing those on Friday, assuming that the stream. You can watch me clean the brush, assuming that the stream goes on because of dog watching. Assuming that happens without a hitch, I'm going to be putting these itsy bitsy teeny weeny little pieces. They all get assembled into these areas here. One there, two here, one there, and one there. Oh, and then the chair. The chair goes right here in the middle. And if I get this chair done, you can see all these little bits all go in there. These are ready to assemble. This is all ready to assemble. The machine guns and everything are done. This is done. This bit here is not ready to go on. I need to get, okay. I'm just looking at how this is put together. And yeah, I need to get the control panels done before I can assemble this, because it fits these side pieces attached to the control panel, the instrument panel. So the instrument panel has to be installed on there like this before the rest of it can be assembled. I should have looked ahead, but I didn't. What I wanted to do on here is, that was almost really bad. I had the open jar of isopropyl alcohol sitting. It was sitting just off to the right here, just over there. And I reached over and it's open and I almost knocked it over. That would have been unpleasant. And all these jars out here, but not the one I want. There it is. This is a very light gray wash. There's not much pigment in it. And I'm going to be putting it on the khaki. And I don't really want it to change colors much, but I want it to make it look less flat. Okay, I want it to be less flat looking, especially on the back. Bubbles. There's striations in the back here. And I want this to kind of puddle into the bottom parts. There, like it is. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see it's a little darker in the lines. So it's doing what I want it to do. And kind of puddle around. That sit like this. And when it dries, I will look at it and see whether it's okay or not. Thing I'm going to do is very carefully remove this from here and set it in the these are done pieces box. That's what the tweezers does, is it flips things around. They look okay. I mean, I think these pieces came out pretty decent. They look pretty decent. They're ready to be assembled into the cockpit area on Friday, depending on how that goes. That needs to dry. Actually capped that in case it gets bumped at this point. That would be bad. And I'm going to paint the backs of these, base coat the backs of those with the color, that the yellow the desert yellow that's being used for the wood. And on Friday, I'll be starting to deal with the fronts of them. One of them gets a decal, and the other one has a huge amount of detail, bezels and dials and knobs and all sorts of things. And yeah, that'll be a challenge. It's going to be a real challenge. That could take months. I'm just using a piece of paper instead of paper towel because some of the paint will get onto the surface below. Okay, these little pins here, where it attaches, so I'm going to hold it. That's not going to show because that's where it attaches. I'm going to hold this down with a toothpick and paint it, and then move it off of the wet paint like that. And then do the same with this. This will require a couple of coats probably. This paint has in the past required 2 or sometimes even 3 coats to look really good. Mm. And the edges, because once they're installed, much of the back of this actually is visible. I'm glad I test fit it because otherwise I wouldn't have bothered painting the back. A second coat to do what needs to be done. But the first coat is on, so there. More painting with Dyson Dungeons. Dyson Dungeons is a group of family and friends, and our main purpose is to put on a Dungeons and Dragons show. And we do that on Twitch with a live chat on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, which is now standard time because we all fell back. That show's been going on for over 100 episodes. Character development, the storyline, the world that our DM invented. It's a homebrew world. All of that is just amazing. And if you haven't, why don't you catch a couple of episodes on YouTube, or you can even listen to them as a podcast as you're driving or doing something else at work or whatever. You don't have to watch because you'll know our characters by our voices. We do, we each have 2 voices. One is our voice and the other is our character's voice. So you can tell when we're in character and whether we're just talking to each other or about the game, trying to get information. Or explaining to the DM what it is we're trying to do, because we think we know what we're doing, but she has no clue what we're trying to do, and so says, "What are you trying to do? Just tell me what you're trying to do, and then I'll tell you whether you can or not." That happens sometimes. And then it's like, "Why are you trying to do that?" Whatever. Because, we're very creative. We're very creative. But you need to watch our show or listen to it. It's really good, and that's what that's all about. This stream, which takes up like a bunch of time a week started out because of we make our own dungeon tiles for our show, like these. Okay. And you'll see them when we go into combat or go through towns or something of that sort. These are done on the PLA printers back here, and then we prime them and base coat them and detail them, and then usually put wash on them to make them look like they're weathered. And the really cool thing about them is that under the bottoms, there's ball magnets in each corner. And if I can show you how they work, they grab onto themselves. Okay, so you don't need any special surface or anything. And they're really easy to attach and detach. And that's a huge feature of our dungeons because you can put these together in so many different ways. We even had a mimic dungeon once that disassembled and reassembled itself because it's so easy to do that with these tiles. Anyway, that's how this stream started, doing the minifigs for the show and the dungeon tiles for the show. And eventually we had all the minifigs and dungeon tiles that we needed. And so I started working on models, and I built a Fink that nobody remembers. I built a submarine that I finished back last spring, like in March. Almost done with an Apollo stack that includes the service module and 2 parts of the LEM and the command module and escape tower, and all the parts are sitting over there in boxes because I have no place to store them. I have yet to finish the command module because I'm doing something real special with that, because the instrument panel on that model is very poorly done as a model. And so I found some pictures of the real Apollo instrument panel, and I am printing them with a high quality printer onto sticky paper, like a sticker. That's what it really is. And I'm going to put those onto the surfaces of the control panel so that when I assemble the command module and you look through a little hatch, you'll be able to see that instead of just blue painted whatever. But I haven't done that yet. And so I moved on from that to working on the Savoia S.21 Porco Rosso's plane. And I am getting really close to getting the interior detail of the plane done. Yeah, whoever painted that instrument panel was an amazing painter. But that's how it needs to be done, is that it needs to be painted wood, the bezels around the outside of the instruments painted metallic, the inside's white, and then they have little dials and things on them, and I have no idea how they managed to get those done. But I'm going to try. I'll try my best to replicate that amazingly beautiful stuff. But I got the itsy bitsy teeny weeny parts done. Those I can install the next time I stream. The chair. Almost, but not quite the way I down in the bottom, it puddled up pretty well, but it didn't puddle up very well on the rest of the seat. Dare I put a little bit more on now? I dare. That to do was about. And then just as another reminder, once again, I will remind everybody that I am dog watching starting tomorrow, which means that I don't know what's going to happen. I might end up starting late if they require extra attention to get their duty done in the morning. I might have to interrupt the stream if I need to stop them from misbehaving. Yeah, it's not. I really am not quite sure how it's going to go. So I'm just going to say that things might be a little bit unpredictable between now and next Wednesday, the next 3 streams. I'm going to do my best to get the streams go from 10 until 1 like I have been. But if I need to start late or interrupt or end early, I hope you understand that that's the reason why. So on Friday, assuming I get going at all, I'm going to be installing the itsy bitsy teeny weeny pieces into the cockpit. I'm going to be starting to work on the instrument panels. See how that goes. I might start pulling out the next, sometimes just to get things happening. I very well may end up starting to pull out the pieces for the engine. I very well may be doing that. Okay, the manifolds are painted gloss black. I'm just looking at that. The rest of it is painted metallic. I have to get a translation for that. I'm not sure what that bit is all about, whether this is set up so that the propeller rotates or not, and that will tell me whether that should be like not cemented or something. I'm not sure. I've got gloss black paint, but I'm actually going to spray paint these. These things that are gloss black because I want them to. These are going to show. The engine cover comes off the engine, just like the fuselage comes off the top of the bottom of the fuselage. And I want it to look good. I can get the metallics done, especially if there's a lot of texture like that. I can get that done with brushing on, but I'm going to spray paint those, I think. Yeah, interesting. So the instrument panel I can install these things. I can install the seat and the machine guns and the fuel tank, everything but this part here, which is all of these parts. Okay. And I can't install this until it's assembled, and I can't assemble it until the instrument panel is done because the instrument panel is an integral part of the attachment points. Can't put the sides on until the panel is in. And so, yeah, I mean, I hadn't looked far enough ahead. I was just sort of avoiding working on that because it needs to be really, really nicely done, and it'll be hard to do. But I will be able to do a fair amount of assembly on the next stream. I'll be working on the instrument panels, second coating the back, front coating the front, maybe even getting the decal out. I'm not sure. And depending on how the dogs are behaving and how much time I have, I'll probably find these pieces of the engine and begin the assembly of that. And then the assembly goes into a holder, and then the engine, well, you can just see a lot of the engine. Yeah, the inside of this is painted metallic, but the outside is spray painted red. And there's a lot of instructions. I'm going to take this up with me and see if I can get a translation. I really think that would be a good idea. I think it'd be a good idea to get some of these translated because it's saying something important here, as is this here. All right. Dyson Dungeons, thanks for being a new follower today. I really appreciate that. Thank you for, if you watch this on YouTube, becoming a subscriber. You can go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons and become a patron. That would be hugely appreciated. Thank you very much for even considering that. Watch our Dungeons and Dragons show. Listen to our Dungeons and Dragons show. That's what this is really all about. And this stream is just, I think, keeping the old guy out of people's hair in the household. I think, even though they tell me otherwise, I don't think they really listen to this. I think what it is, though, is if we can put him down in the basement 3 mornings a week, then, that's less time that he's up here being in the way and being a curmudgeon, that kind of thing. But I'll keep that to myself. I won't say that to anybody out loud. See you, hopefully, if all goes well with the puppies, that I'll be here right at about 10 and go the entire time. If not, I'll get as much done as I possibly can. But I hope that you check in on Friday to see how things are going. Yeah, thanks so much. And on behalf of Dice and Dungeons, have a good day. Bye.